Yeah, so this is
No,
episode 4, the DGS YouTube video. You're back in your 70s room,
I am. It's Star
hiding
Trek
in my
this time.
basement. So what have you been up to, man? What's going? What are you working on?
Just mostly just vacuum forming stormtrooper armor and that kind of stuff. And I should be writing. I have about 10 modules I need to start writing. There's a lot going on, but
That's true. I can probably help you with that. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what I've been doing. Been writing modules. I got a few conventions coming up. I have VengerCon, which is a small little convention that's in.
Oh, here we go. Wait. It's DGS News. Beep, beep, beep.
There you go.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I got VengerCon.
I had to worry. I had to figure out how to do the sound effects. So we'll be a professional show. Anyway, we got the con coming up.
Yeah, that's tomorrow. I'm going to run some D&D there. I might run something else. I haven't really decided yet. And then after that, we have Con on the Cobb, but that's in October. And that'll be a big event.
Right. Well, back to VengerCon. Which games are you running? Which
VengerCon?
games? Yeah.
I'm running the one that we talked about last week, the desert adventure, the Lost Tomb of Abdul.
Oh, okay, the Lost Tomb.
Yeah. So that's I'll be running that one, and maybe something else on Saturday. I don't know. So I'll be running that one.
Anyone going to that con and playing in Con's game, just download the PDF so you can, it's like a cheat code. So you know what the hell he's doing, and you can just totally screw up his game.
True story. I mean, that would be spoiler, right?
But don't do that. It's a suggestion. And you got Con on the Cobb.
Yeah, and then Con on the Cobb in October. We'll talk more about that as it gets closer, but I have a lot of cool stuff planned for that
no
one.
No teaser games?
Well, Necroscope.
Yeah,
Necroscope will be the big one.
But episode on Necroscope a little closer to October.
Yeah. I'm working on a module. I'm doing a few things through that. Once that's complete, we'll do a big episode about that, about Masterbook and Necroscope and Brian Lumley and all that literature and everything.
Oh yeah, all the good stuff.
So that'll be fun. But what I wanted to do today is I'm just kind of checking in really quick with the audience before I take off here to the convention tomorrow. But wanted to talk a little bit about running effective or good convention games, and then I wanted to show an example of basically a module that's built for a convention game. That's
right. Running convention games. The DGS get. Oh wait, that's a typo. Hold on. Oh, there we go.
People already think we're boyfriends. I mean,
are we brothers? Are we lovers? Are we both?
Yeah.
The answer is yes, both. Perhaps.
But anyway, So doing it the DGS way. So what are some of the things that actually, let's start it simple. What are some of the things at a basic level a GM should do or a DM should do when they run a convention game, a 4 to 6 hour game? What would you say, Michael?
Right. Now, this is strictly for conventions. The first thing you want to do is, of course, put together a cool adventure, something that people will be interested in, something that is maybe a little more unique. We're the Dead Game, so we're going to try to find, like a Boot Hill or a Star Frontiers, Call of Cthulhu, like some Modest Print stuff, to really get people's interest in it. Because, anyone can, nowadays it's like all 5e, and it's just like, and that's great. But everyone's running that. So You want a hook, something that is going to make you stand out among a larger crowd. So, that would be my first tip on it.
Yeah, I would say that a second tip would be, this kind of goes without saying, but not that many GMs really follow this advice, but keep the adventure contained by having clear, discrete objectives and certain restrictions on what the players can do or what the PCs can do within the course of the adventure. Otherwise, it gets way off track. It goes down a rabbit hole. It turns into a sandbox when you don't want a sandbox. So what are some of the ways to maybe gracefully restrict what the players can do, would you say, Michael?
Railroad the adventure, because you have to. If you now, I
How do
run
you do that?
4 hour adventures. Well, you construct your adventure where it's plot points. So you have to go to A to B to C and stuff like that, and you keep it on rails. Now, like with my games, it's a little easier because, like, say with the Sesame Street game, well, you're in Sesame Street, so they're maneuvering around a very closed area. Now, I've had circumstances like there's a thing in the game where I need them to leave the room. And I had one player just would refuse to leave the room because he was trying to do something in there that was not really necessary. So what helps if you write your own adventure, because then you can always find ways. And eventually I was able to work them out of the room and stuff like that, because something really important had to happen and no one had to be there to propel the story forward. And that's the whole thing. Keep it simple, and it has to be on rails. I mean, I know people say, "Oh, you should never railroad your players." Well, you're at a convention, and if you got a bunch of 4 to 6 people just going like in random directions all at once, it's like, okay, well, yeah, you can do that, and we'll never finish the adventure, and we'll just sit here for 4 hours, just experiencing that. And I guess that's okay too. But I kind of want to get to the end of the adventure.
Yeah.
Anyway, how about you, Colin?
Yeah, I would add to that do not be afraid to bring the enemy to the players. If the players are screwing around and they're not making progress, bring the enemy to them, right?
Oh, sure.
Or have a situation where if they're farting around, if they're not making progress, they hear a noise from some adjacent chamber, right? Something's happening. They hear footsteps, or they hear shuffling, or they hear a scream or something like that. Get them out of that farting around, messing, wasting time mode, right? The best you can.
And I think what happens is, players, they're to the convention to play games, but they forget that they're in a convention, and so they're thinking they're in their like homebrew campaign where you get to do all of that because you're on a campaign that could go weeks, months, sometimes years, and you have that luxury, especially as a DM, to say, yeah, if they want to piddle around for 4 or 5 hours, and then you can swing them back around, that's fine. But with 4 to 6 hours, it's like, no, we want to get through this. And
right.
And I'll purposely write my games shorter than 4 hours, because if it's going a little long, I have that cushion. Or if it's going to be a little short, I can always add encounters. And
Sure.
being the writer of the module, I have that luxury where I can extend it or shorten it. And that's the key. You want them to get to the end and have a
Right.
really good time doing it, and make them think that they're actually in control.
Yeah, some other things you can do is, and again, isn't railroady, but it's a way to kind of keep the adventure according to plot and on track. Is, they're on a ship, right? So
Sure.
can't really wander off into the forest if you're on a ship.
Right.
And objectives are clear. Like, we have to get from point A to point B. We can't fart around, and and there's time limits, right? Let's say
Right.
Something terrible is going to happen if the PCs don't accomplish a certain mission within like 24 or 48 hours, right? So they're not like in town haggling with the blacksmith over a sword for a half an hour of game time in a convention, right? So you want them with a sense of urgency in moving forward, right?
Well, sure. And keep them on track, and also know how to handle I don't want to say problem character, but one person that's getting too much into the, like the little grainy sands of something that doesn't really matter in this setting, where you got to snap them out of that and say, listen, it's like, well, someone, they kill someone that's important to the story. Well, you don't want one guy sitting there going, well, I'm going to spend 2 hours preparing his body for burial and shit like that. Like, no, it's like, he's dead. And he's
right,
dead.
right. Or you just do that. Yeah, you do that. It's done.
It's like, yeah, you go do that, and we're going to go over here and have fun.
Right.
Ta. And luckily, I don't run into that very often.
Yeah, the other thing would be, and this again, this goes without saying, make sure you have pre-generated characters and supplements, right? Do not
Yeah,
have players rolling up PCs.
come prepared.
Exactly, and that's a good example right there. So this is from which game?
This is from Catastrophe, and it's your basic. This is a freely character sheet, and all the stuff is there and ready to go. And that's the biggest mistake. And I'll tell a convention game. So Colin and I are at Gen Con, and we're going to play a Star Trek Next Generation game. And I was pretty stoked for it. And so Colin and I
Oh, yeah.
got into the game together, walk up to the table, sit down, and the guy's like, okay, well, I just need you to roll up some characters. I shit you not, I stood up and I said, I'm not doing this, Colin. I am not doing this. And I started to walk away because I was not doing this, because I always come prepared for my games. And I'm not going to spend an hour writing up a character sheet to a game system I have no idea what it's about, screwing around. And then Colin was like, oh, no, dude, like pulled me aside. So, oh, no, let's do it. So Colin put me back in, and I did go with the game, but I was not, as you can tell in my voice, I'm getting overly excited. I got the vapor. And it's like, that is absolutely unacceptable.
Right. The other thing I do too is if I'm running like a mid to high level D&D adventure, and the pre-gens have, like, let's say a magic user or a cleric, and they have set spells.
I'm print so out off. Just thinking about it drives me nuts. Sorry, Colin.
But I print out.
I gotta calm down.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Anyway, I basically give the players a spell list with the spell descriptions on a sheet, right? Like a laminated sheet or something. So they're not having to flip through the player's handbook, right? So that's another way to kind of speed things up and to make it really help. The next point that we have is, this is like one of the most important ones. Everyone in the party, right? What?
Bathing. That's
yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. We could do a whole episode on personal hygiene.
We will. And we'll film it in the shower. So we'll be taking showers and talking about it, and instructional videos.
maybe another time. Not this time. But anyway, oh my God, where was I? So I was saying that, every character, right? Every player needs to have something to do. Right. And this sounds like such a simple thing, but I cannot tell you how many times I've been in a game over the last 4 years of my RPG tabletop playing experience where I get kind of stuck in an adventure where one or two player characters in a group of like 7 is doing everything because there's nothing else for the other players to do. And that's right. Like, timeout, like poorly written adventure if that's the case, right? So if there's a thief, they need to be picking locks, they need to be disabling traps, hearing, listening at doors, like that kind of thing. If you have a cleric, they need to be doing their healing spells and protection spells and that kind of fighters.
Yeah, throw in a dead character, that kind of thing, or NPC.
Right. It can't just be a meat grinder where 2 fighters are doing everything, right? Or in the case of like Call of Cthulhu, if you're drawing up investigators for Call of Cthulhu and they have all these different skills and things they can do, make sure those skills come out in the adventure, right? Their detective skills and their research skills. Yep. Make sure everybody has something to do and that it comes out in the game. And if you're at a convention and you're running a game and you see maybe a player who's kind of shy, doesn't quite know what to do, give them a little nudge, be like, hey, maybe your investigator, Sally, could maybe do, check this or something. And it gives them an idea of how to run the character. Because not everybody is, expert.
Right. Or yell at them like I do.
I can do that too.
At them and snap them out of it. That's why I'm the best DM in the world.
Laser pointer. Yeah, the laser pointer in the face. Yeah.
Yeah, or I like to do explosions and pop things, but the other thing, in that same vein, you can do all the writing in the world and make sure everyone has something to do. But also, since it's your own adventure, just you can come up with stuff on the fly. You know what I mean? Where it's like, if you feel maybe you didn't write enough for one character, well, it's your adventure. You can make things up. That goes along with the adventure, but gives
Right.
them more to do. And just pay attention to your players. Do not stick your head down in your notes and books and stuff like that while they're sitting around. If someone looks bored, then you need to focus a little bit more attention on that person and bring them
Right.
out. And it's very important. You've got to play the audience, and your
Right.
PCs, you're an actor on stage. They are the
Yeah.
audience, and you have to pay attention. And if you are the author of the adventure, it makes it so much easier to do that. That's why I always suggest write your own adventures, because what you write isn't always on the page, but it's always up here. And
Right.
it helps a lot.
Yeah.
To
And another way to make things, which brings us to our next point, another way to make things interesting is through visuals. Obviously, I use a lot of pictures and stuff, and that I hand it kind of old school. I hand them out to the players to show them a picture or something like an altar
Sure.
or a door, or I like having pictures of bad guys, monsters and that kind of stuff. But the other thing we do is, as the DGS, right, is we have a lot of props, costumes, and things like that. So I'm going to hand that over to you. So there you go, Michael. So that's a good example.
Yeah, this is us as our Imperial officers. I was writing a Star Wars game that I wrote. I think it was These Are Not the Droids, or These Are the Droids You're Looking For, where you play the stormtroopers in A New Hope looking for the droids, and it doesn't go as planned sometimes. But
Did they get killed by Jawas or something at the end? I don't even remember.
Well, the problem with the game now, this is my most on rails game ever, because I wrote the adventure to stick to canon, so it's unavoidable that the Jawas attack them, or or Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru do, because it has to stick to the story. And I remember one player saying, "It's like, so we can't really go against the movie." I'm like, "No, sorry." Of course, I'm wearing my full stormtrooper armor, so it's like, he's like, "Okay," and we went on and have fun with it. I don't run that. I only ran that game once, because it was obviously completely on rails.
Yeah, I mean, that's the joke, right?
They all had fun, but I'm like, okay. But yeah, I do a lot of costumes, and of course, Colin does as well, and
Bowie
adventure and stuff like that. And of course, we know about the kiss. That was for my Budokan one.
And then there's several incarnations of Gene. There's Dress to Kill Gene.
Oh yeah. The very first Gene was I might have that.
I'm sure
somewhere.
You do. We don't need to dig it up now, but yeah, there's Dress to Kill Gene, and then there's the Bowies, and then the other thing that we like to do, which I love, Michael does this for me for my games, because I can't do this, is he creates for me either custom character tokens or character like miniatures, basically that are molded. I mean, they're sculpted and molded. So I don't know if you have any pictures of those, Michael. Like, for instance, for my Chernobyl adventure, or maybe for.
I couldn't help myself,
there he
Colin.
is. Okay.
There's the very first Gene costume, the Dress to Kill.
Stefan there. Yeah, there he is.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
if you have any pictures of minis,
I do. What I did was for your Chernobyl adventure, for example. Tell them about your Chernobyl while I get this ready.
Yeah, so the reactor for the Chernobyl adventure actually was originally written by Chad, but I kind of expanded on it a bit.
Basically stole it.
Yeah, the one that writes a little bit, I think it's fading a bit, but the investigators, this is basically a Call of Cthulhu adventure, are from the International Atomic Energy Commission, and they have to go and investigate Chernobyl years later, and they find out the terrible truth behind actually what happened. That a mad nuclear scientist basically had somehow trapped a color from outer space basically inside the reactor core. So, horrible things happen. But Michael created these custom minis for me. And then aren't the back like radioactive drums or something like that? If you
Yeah,
have
I
the
had a
picture
little
of
fun with this.
that. There we go.
That's the back of them.
Yeah, and then during that adventure, basically the not to be a spoiler, but like the mad scientist, he has like a parasitic twin like growing out of his shoulder that's like whispering dark secrets to him from beyond. So that's why I trapped the color from outer space, and the whole thing melts down again, and everybody dies. Well, there are ways to escape it, but it's very dark and very fun. But that's an example of using custom pieces.
Yeah, and with
Immortal
the custom pieces, basically everyone can do this. Now I'm going to probably have a tutorial on a very basic dungeon pieces, but it does add some flavor to the game. Like when I was doing my Nightmare on Sesame Street, so I was using Fisher Price pieces. So I went ahead and made my own of like cultists and deep ones in the style of Fisher Price, because just to add a little more flavor. Or when I did my Kiss game, what I did was I took Marvel one of the hero clicks, and one of them had a guitar, and so I just took those and whittled it down to make a Gene, Paul, and Ace, and then I can't remember which character I used for the Peter Criss, but it's kind of like this werewolf type of deal. So you can take existing things and repurpose them to work in your game. And then I got a little elaborate with my Bowie game, so that everyone would have a mask of Bowie, like a Halloween mask to wear for the game if they felt like it. And because I have a life cast of David Bowie, so I made a copy of it and then resculpted the molds to do these Bowie faces, so that these are all masked and they're all wearable. So people, in the game could, wear them or not, and then they would keep them after the game, so it would be like a souvenir for the game. And I was like, if you add these little touches to the game, people appreciate that, and that's really what's important. You want to create a memorable event, so people will talk about it afterwards, like, oh, I was in this so and so's game and blah blah blah, and they did this, and that's like super important, because you want, if you are doing a lot of conventions, you want people to recognize who you are and stuff like that. Just another example. So this is with the Fisher Price. So I'm using existing Fisher Price ones, except for the Kermit. I made that one in the deep ones. So it just adds to the setting. And for me, I have a little bit of talent, so I'm able to do a lot of these things. But you don't need that much talent. You just need wanting to do it. So anyway.
Yeah. So, and then
yeah,
so I think that that mostly covers up mostly covers the how to run a convention game. But one thing that we're going to talk about today, and we're going to finally get to, is when you can write your own modules, obviously, and you can integrate them into existing settings, campaigns, and scenarios. So like what I did for recently, not too long ago, is I wrote a module, and I think Michael has that handy, called the Terror of Alphaks. So now what is this? So this is basically kind of similar to what we were talking about last episode, where I looked into the gazetteers from the old BECMI days back in the 80s. And there was the Dawn of the Emperors of Thyatis and Alphasia box set. And in there was reference to a kind of an immortal or a demon prince who had a kind of a cult around him named Alphaks. And at one point in the history of all this, he had a group of people devoted him, like clerics and fighters or whatever, magic users who lived on a volcanic island in an underground city called Revenge. And I thought that was really neat because in the Gazetteer, in the module M1, into the Maelstrom, which was from TSR, they mention, you know, this island and all this other stuff. And at one point in the Gazetteer, they talk about a 36 level magic user called the Black King and a 36 level cleric called the Black Queen, who ruled over this you know, city of revenge and this volcanic island and all this stuff. And it was like a cult of Alphaks. And I thought it would be really cool to write an adventure that takes place before TSR modules M1 and M2. So before Into the Maelstrom and Vengeance of Alphaks, and kind of serve as a precursor. So what I did here is that this module here, which is available on our site, on the DGS group, and I'll put it someplace else too once I get somewhere file repository figured out. But right now it's on our Facebook group, and this is good for about maybe a 6 to 8 hour adventure. It can be expanded to a much larger campaign if you want. What's in here is kind of the bare minimum to run things. So here
Just
I have
quick question, Colin. Now, is this convention ready? So you said it's a 6 to 8 hours. Now, 8 hours at a convention is a long time.
That's a long time.
Now, can they cut this down to make sure it's 6? Did you build that in there to kind of like maybe cut that, you know, that the DM could cut it back a little bit to and have a full adventure? However, in the time constraint of a convention, you want 5.5 hours and with a half-hour cushion.
I didn't write that in, but I can kind of talk about it here.
Okay.
So in the adventure, right, we have these chapters, and the first chapter, basically Riot, deals with a riot that breaks out in the city of Thyatis, and the city of Thyatis is like Byzantium, right? It's just a kind of Byzantine empire. It's kind of this kind of romantic, Greco-Roman kind of feel to it, with, you know, gladiatorial games and festivals and porticos and, you know, all this stuff, right? And the characters, the PCs, are in high level, basically magic users, cleric, fighters, working directly for the emperor and the imperial family. And the start of this, the start of the adventure basically opens up with a riot in the capital. And the reason for the riot is because the grain shipments have been interrupted by pirates and insufficient food is being delivered to the capital, right? So people are starting to starve and they're starting to become angry. So even though there's these lavish games going on, a riot breaks out in the amphitheater. So it's kind of like the Nika riots from history. And the first part of this is that the player characters have to basically get the imperial family back to the palace safe and sound. So there's this big fight that breaks out, and you have to go into the sewer system where you fight these were rats, and like the lord of the were rats called Alexis the Fetid. Once you do that, you basically, a larger conspiracy develops where the Princess Stefania disappears. What you can do if you want to whittle it down is you don't need to use the riot, right? You can take that chapter actually out and just have the princess disappear. So that'll probably remove an hour of gameplay right there.
Okay.
Once she vanishes, the player characters are tasked by the emperor to figure out obviously where she went, and they discover a crystal ball, almost like a palantir, in her possession, in a hidden compartment, and she, which becomes clear much later in the adventure, was corresponding with the Black King, right, who was in disguise, and he ensorcelled her through the crystal ball. And she went and hired a merchant ship, and she went out sailing into the ocean, where she was basically captured by this Black Fleet, right, which is a group of pirates in the service of Alphaks. So the player characters go off into the ocean looking for her in this Thyacian expeditionary fleet. And they encounter this other fleet, right? This black fleet. And here,
Uh,
just like in
may I ask
module,
a question?
sure, go ahead.
Is this DEI compliant?
There's something for everybody, dude, Michael. But it's certainly DIE compliant because
Okay.
you can die very easily. But one thing that we have here is this is optional. You can use the C machine rules that are in module M1 into the Maelstrom by TSR. That's a mouthful, but those rules are in there. Yeah, that module right there. So and as a matter of fact, I'll just flip over to it right now. Let's see. Here it is, the C machine. I'm not going to get all into this because it's a big, complicated thing in here. But basically, what it involves is figuring out your fleet battle rating by looking at the troops that are on the ships, the types of ships that they're using, the movement, how many spellcasters, and this kind of thing. And then when you go to battle, you use a certain bonus based on the quality of your fleet to see what happens. So in my adventure, just like in this one, there's a sea battle, and it can be done in a couple different ways. You can use the sea machine to figure out how many sailors are killed or Marines are killed and how many ships are sunk and all that kind of thing. Or you can just use ship to ship combat with the PCs and this guy named Black Edward, who's the head of the pirates, right? Thank you. Yeah, he's read my mind here. So you can, fight him, either capture him, kill him, go into his strong box, and from there, you figure out the location of this volcanic island, right? And that's where brings us to the next chapter, the island, where here you see the volcano of Alphaks, right in the Great Chasm. And the players have to navigate these whirlpools and go into the chasm. On the island itself, there's some encounters here. If the players don't just want to go right into the chasm and go looking for the princess, they can kind of explore the island. And there's some kind of cool stuff in here. There's a haunted forest. In there, there's a Nightwing, which is a really horrible creature from, basic D&D. This thing can be like 20 hit die and be really deadly. So it's just like basically haunted forest with this creature ruling over it. There's also like an orc encampment. There's random encounters. And then they go through the Great Chasm, where they either can fool the guards that are guarding the Great Chasm. They can put cloaks on to disguise themselves as acolytes of Alphaks, basically kind of sneak around. And they can finally get into the City of Revenge, which is this subterranean city. And it's not really much of a city, it's more of a settlement. And there's a citadel in there. There's a castle. I call it the Citadel of Tears. And the players can infiltrate that in an attempt to find the princess. And here's a map of it. And ultimately, they're going to encounter the Black King. Now, the Black King, 36th level magic user. So you can imagine, he's got a lot of spells, lots of powers. It's going to be a high level fight, very dangerous. He is described in some of the other supplements and in the Gazetteer as being this like 6'4" towering figure with basically almost featureless black face, almost like it's just difficult to make out.
Wait, did you just say he's in blackface?
No, he's not. He's actually is black.
Okay, I'm just checking.
Not brown. Okay,
Just checking.
This is kind of what he might look like, right, with glowing eyes.
Just checking, Whitey.
Okay. So you have to fight him, and then ultimately, if you overcome him or drive him away, you can go to the lower levels, and then you can encounter the Black Queen, right, who's the cleric. Now, again, spoiler alert here, there is the princess is being sacrificed, of course, to Alphaks, but down in this, basically in this subterranean dungeon, there's this apparatus called the Pocket Vortex, which is controlled by the Black King and is connected to his life force. And it allows the Black King and Queen to communicate with the demon Alphaks through this kind of portal to the plane of death, right? It's with some corner of the sphere of entropy, according to D&D Lord, and he's in here, and he can kind of issue commands and reach out, right? Kind of like Prince of Darkness style, right, into the real world. So player characters have to dispatch these two evil individuals, either drive them off or maybe kill them. The only caveat is that if you kill the Black King and his life force is gone, this pocket vortex apparatus can no longer maintain the stability of the island, and the volcano itself will erupt, right? Which is kind of like the front page of the module, and the players have like an hour to get out of there before the entire island is mostly destroyed by this epic Krakatoan like eruption.
Right.
So then and then there's some pre-roll characters and stuff in here, but that will lead characters then, if they get through this, you can at a later date, and this wouldn't be for convention, you can then go on to the actual official D&D modules, M1 into the Maelstrom, and this one, Vengeance of Alphaks, right?
M1 and M2.
Right. At that point, Alphax's island is just basically the volcano itself. And the City of Revenge, as far as I know, because it's not really referenced in these particular modules, is probably long gone or destroyed, right? So it's now there's like these black fumes that are going over the ocean and making people sick and killing people in places like Norwald and these other regions and stuff. And then it's a whole nother adventure to go out and try to deal with, the reemergence of Alphaks, right? So Alphaks is this, it's described here on one site. It says Alphaks is the last emperor of Old Alphacia in the time before its destruction. In a debate between the followers of air and fire, Alphaks took the side of the flame wizards and thus caused a major civil war that devastated Old Alphacia. And he was banished, and in a couple centuries attained immortality. And what he wants to do is he's looking for revenge against Alphacia. And one way to do it is by trying to start a war between the Empire of Thyatis and the Empire of Thyatia, right? So, and the players get all wrapped up in this whole thing. So that's an example of, a convention game, 6-8 hours, depending what you kind of want to cut out.
8 hours. Is there a nappy in between? So like you play for,
or you could do it over 2 days. You could do it over 2 days, right? But we don't really recommend doing that because it's hard to schedule over 2 days. So,
and that's the thing.
Yeah.
You don't want to lock people, like I remember Chad, God rest his soul, before he passed, he had, and this is the early days of DGS, he had a Boot Hill adventure, and it would get players, but it was like a 3-day event.
Yeah, it's like a tournament.
It was a tournament, and it's like it was a great idea, but it just there wasn't really it was at Gary Con in the early days, so you only had a finite number of players. Like this wasn't like Gen Con where there's 30,000-40,000 people there. So that's why I would for certain things I wouldn't do like overnights, that type of deal. I would just stick to 4 hours.
Yeah, the only time I would run something multiple days is if you know who your players are and you're able to really schedule it in advance, right?
And they're pre-signed, sure.
Some of your buddies are playing, yeah.
Right. Yeah. The problem is, if you're not playing with your buddies and other people, strangers. And so if, and that's the hardest thing, because maybe the next day something comes up and they're like, oh, I'm going to go do this. And then now you're scrambling to find players to fill those gaps if you can. I mean, the main reason I stopped going to Gen Con, and we had gone there, a number of years in a row. Mm-hmm. Last year, I had a Love Boat, and one person showed up because you're at Gen Con and everyone, partying and having fun and stuff. And I'm like, well, I need players So that's why I was like, okay, I'm done with Gen Con, because by that time it was reaching 50 to 60,000 people.
Yeah.
And so our games instantly sell out. So we were thinking, oh, they're going to show up. But, and I always run my games at noon and 4. Nothing too early, nothing too late. For that very reason, for any convention.
That should be in our bullet points as far as running games at conventions. Don't run them at 9 a.m.
No, don't. First off,
I'm over people or they won't show. Yeah, it's not a good time.
I may be up at 9 a.m., but usually I'm in the shower, balled up, crying because I maybe had a little too much fun the night before and rocking back and forth. Or like,
yeah, we won't talk about that.
And I, because I'm running a game at noon, so I just, I get a couple Bloody Marys at 11:30, and it's showtime, man. Yeah. I'm here.
It's basically with Michael before 10 a.m. It's like leaving Las Vegas.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So after 10, he's okay. Get a Bloody Mary into him.
Oh God! And then I'm more than rocking. My favorite thing with Chad was, he would. Well, we all would. We just party hard and have fun. But he would run his games at like 10 in the morning, and then we would be getting. We're up and ready to go around 11, and we'd pass his table, and he's just gray and sweating and looks like, oh my God, it's just like, call an ambulance. But he is running that game like an all-star.
Yeah,
it's like look at him like, I have no idea how you do this. I know that you are dying inside, but man, you are just knocking out of the park.
He's a machine. He looks like, during those games, he looks like Meatloaf circa 1979, but yeah, he's running it. Like, so like a bell out of hair. Yeah, not me. I'm too old for that. I have to be somewhat coherent.
Dude, I'm almost 39 and I still can't do that.
Yeah, but anyway.
So
okay.
I just love that story, man. Oh my God. I can't get it. I miss Chad so much. I really do.
Yeah, but
I wish he was here.
And back to the convention. We'll talk more about conventions as we go on. We'll kind of review them and talk. We go to a lot of them, so.
Well, what I would like to know, and I know not a lot of people are watching us right now, or when maybe no one will. I don't know, but I wouldn't mind doing a couple episodes on, because you're an excellent writer, very very good, and you know how to build these modules. Maybe doing a show on how to write a module. I think that would be very informative to a lot of people who really want to get into it. Maybe there's not enough details on YouTube or wherever your sources are. And do things like that. I'd like to do a tutorial on how just to build simple game pieces that people could enjoy, and where these are not very elaborate. I sculpted one, cast it in plastic, and just painted it up and things like that. It is not hard, but a lot of people may want to do that. It just spices the game up. And, for me, I think it's important. Plus, they get to keep the pieces, so it's a souvenir. So,
sure. Yeah.
I let them keep the pieces. Like with my Sesame Street game, everyone gets, they can either have a cultist or a deep one in the style of Fisher Price. And, it'll go on someone's shelf, and, maybe a year from now, they'll look at it like, oh, yeah, that game. And so you want to be remembered for this. And that's why I find it very important to just make memorable games. God, I'm so excited I can't even speak. And you make an impact that way. So when they see your name next year and you're running, a chill or, another out of print game, they're like, oh yeah, that guy's really good, or that gal's really good, or, they, them are really good. Trying to be progressive. But, yeah, lots of luck with that. But
yeah, so we should probably wrap it up here. We're almost at the 45-minute mark. But yeah, and if you like the channel, hit the like button, all that good stuff. And what we're gonna be coming at you with more content pretty soon here. I'll give a report on the conventions and stuff I go to. We have some things cooking. We're not quite sure what the next episode is going to be, but we'll figure it out. And it's not going to be D&D. It's going to be something different. We'll move on to a different system and different materials and that kind of stuff, to keep it interesting and variable. But
you want to do Boot Hill next time? Maybe we'll figure it out.
No, let's take it. We'll figure it out. I'm not sure yet. We'll maybe
someone's got to figure it out.
I'll figure it out. So, okay.
We have no idea what we're doing.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. I'm only here because I'm the first trap. I'm Colin's arm candy, something good to look at while he goes on and on and on about, his stuff.
But the only thing I can promise is that next episode will not be the shower episode.
Well, how about if it's requested? I'm just saying. I've been doing a lot of lifting lately. I'm just saying.
Nobody wants to see me in a shower.
Extra thirsty.
Okay. All right, guys. On that note, we're going to wrap it up here, and we will see you next time on the DGS YouTube channel.
All right. See everyone later.